Hello folks, and welcome to Chapter 6, which is an overview of the human body. As phlebotomy technicians, as well as any other field of medicine, it's important to develop and grow a fundamental knowledge of how the human body works. So just a side note that we'll be going to cover a number of organ systems, but however the circulatory system is covered in depth in the following chapter, so we will not review it in this particular presentation. So bodies are organized into body systems. Each system in the body has a condition under which it works best. That's defined as homeostasis, is the name for the condition in which all the body systems are balanced and are working together to maintain internal stability. To be in homeostasis, the body's metabolism, or physical and chemical processes, must be working at a steady level. When disease or injury occurs, the body's metabolism is disturbed and homeostasis is lost. Changes in metabolic processes are called signs, which are objective information, and symptoms, subjective information. For instance, changes in the amounts of certain substances in the blood might be signs of liver damage in a patient. Fatigue or feeling tired, even when rested, might be a symptom of a condition like heart disease. A blood test conducted as part of a routine examination may be the first indication that the body's homeostasis is disturbed. Testing may also help a doctor whose patient is experiencing symptoms to determine what changes are taking place in the body systems. This information can aid diagnosis and treatment. Blood tests can also be helpful in measuring progress back towards homeostasis and improved health. The phlebotomist makes this process possible by drawing high-quality specimens. Each system in the body has its own unique structure and function. The body systems can be organized in different ways. In this book, the human body is divided into 10 systems. The integumentary system, the muscular system, nervous system, circulatory, respiratory, urinary, gastrointestinal, endocrine, reproductive, and the immune and lymphatic system. So body systems are made up of organs. An organ has a specific function. It's a little like a machine. Organs are made up of tissues. Tissues are made up of groups of cells that perform a similar task. For example, in the gastrointestinal system, the stomach is one of the organs. It's made of tissues and cells. Cells are the building blocks of the body. Living cells divide, grow, and die, renewing the tissues and organs of the body. Anatomical terms and locations are descriptive terms to help identify positions or directions of the body. Here are some anatomical terms used to describe locations in the human body. The terms anterior or ventral refers to the front of the body or the body part. Posterior or dorsal refers to the back of the body or body part. Superior, just like your superiors in a job, refers towards the head. Inferior means away from the head or towards the bottom. If you drew a line right in the middle, the center of the body, you would refer to the terms medial and lateral. Medial refers to anything that is towards the midline of the body or more towards the middle of the body, whereas lateral would refer to the side of the body, away from the midline. The term proximal refers to areas on the extremity that are closer to the torso, whereas the term distal refers to extremities that are further away from the torso. Phlebotomists should have a basic understanding of these terms used to indicate location or direction on the human body. So, talking about body systems, we'll start with the integumentary system. The largest organ and system in the body is the skin, a natural protective covering or integument. Skin, or the integumentary system, prevents injury to internal organs and it protects the body against entry of bacteria. Skin also prevents the loss of too much water, which is essential to life. It's made up of layers of tissues. Within these layers are sweat glands, which secrete the sweat to help cool the body when needed, and sebaceous glands, which secrete oil or sebum to keep the skin lubricated. The skin is also a sense organ that feels heat, cold, pain, touch, and pressure. It tells the brain what it's feeling. Body temperature is regulated in the skin. Blood vessels dilate or widen when the outside temperature is too high. This brings more blood to the body's surface to cool it off. The same blood vessels will constrict or narrow when the outside temperatures are too cold. By restricting the amount of blood reaching the skin, the blood vessels help the body retain heat. Capillaries, which are the smallest blood vessels in the body, are located in the dermis, which is the inner layer of the skin. Because of this specimen collection procedure called capillary puncture is also known as dermal puncture. The dermis also contains nerves, sweat glands, sebaceous glands, and hair roots. Sweat glands help control the body temperature as mentioned before by secreting sweat. Sweat is made up of mostly water, but it also contains salt and a small amount of waste products. Sweat comes to the body's surface through pores or tiny openings in the skin. It cools the body as it evaporates. Sebaceous glands in the dermis secrete oil, otherwise known as sebum. Sebum comes to the skin surface through the hair follicles or the roots, and it helps keep the skin and hair lubricated. No blood vessels and only a few nerve endings are located in the epidermis, which is the outer layer of the skin. Thinner than the dermis, the epidermis contains both dead and living cells. The dead cells begin deeper in the epidermis. They are pushed to the surface and other cells divide and are eventually worn off. The epidermis also contains pigment cells that gives the skin its color. Hair grows from the roots located in the dermis. It grows through the hair follicles that extend through the epidermis to the outside of the body. Hair protects the body from heat and cold. Hair inside the nose and ears keeps particles and bacteria trying to enter the body. The function of the integumentary system are to protect internal organs from injury, protect the body against bacteria, and prevent the loss of too much water. It also responds to heat, cold, pain, touch, pressure, and just remember that capillaries are in the dermis, or the inner layer of the skin. Phlebotomy technicians puncture the skin to access capillaries for capillary blood collection, very commonly in pediatrics. Talking about the musculoskeletal system, so muscles, bones, ligaments, tendons, and cartilage give the body shape and structure. They work together to move the body. The skeleton or framework of the human body has 206 bones. In addition to allowing the body to move, bones also protect organs. For example, the skull protects the brain and the vertebrae protect the spinal cord. Bones are hard and rigid, but they're made up of living cells. Blood vessels supply oxygen and nutrients to the bones as well as other tissues in the body. Wherever two or more bones meet, or what we call articulate, is called a joint. Some joints, such as the ball and socket joint, make movement possible in all directions. An example would be the shoulder. This joint is a type of synovial joint. In this joint, the round end of one bone fits into the hollow end of the other bone, which allows for movement in all directions. Other joints permit movement in one direction only. The hinge joint is another example of a synovial joint, like the hinge of a door. A hinge joint permits movement in one direction only. The elbow and knee are hinge joints. They bend in only one direction. Muscles provide movement of body parts to maintain posture and produce heat. Muscles can be voluntary or involuntary. Voluntary muscles are also called skeletal muscles. They're attached to the bones and can be moved when a person wants to move. Examples of voluntary muscles are the arm and leg muscles, which are consciously controlled. Involuntary muscles cannot be consciously controlled. They automatically regulate the movement of organs and blood vessels. An example of an involuntary muscle would be the heart, although the heart itself would be considered a separate type of muscle altogether. The function of the musculoskeletal system are to give the body shape and structure, to allow the body to move, to protect body organs, and to maintain posture and produce heat. So just going back, remember the following points about the musculoskeletal system. The adult human body has 206 bones. Small children and babies actually have more bones than adults. Where two bones meet is called a joint. Joints make movement possible in either all directions or one direction only, and sometimes in no directions. You also have areas where two bones meet that don't move at all. Those are called immovable joints. Muscles provide movement and are very important for producing heat. They can be either voluntary under conscious control or involuntary, automatic. And the system gives the body shape, structure, allows for movement, protects body organs, maintains posture, and produces heat. On a side note, there are several different blood tests associated with the musculoskeletal system. One test is the erythrocyte sedimentation rate, or otherwise known as ESR. Sometimes you may hear it referred to as a SED rate. This measures the rate at which red blood cells settle to the bottom of the test tube. When the cells settle quickly, this can indicate inflammation. Though the test does not reveal the cause, however, markers for inflammation can help steer the physician in a direction of making a diagnosis of some type of inflammatory musculoskeletal disease. Tests for certain antibodies may help diagnose arthritis. Levels of muscle enzymes may be measured to determine if muscle tissue is being damaged or destroyed, a process called rhabdomyolysis. It's also important for determining the accurate diagnosis of a heart attack. Remember, the heart is a muscle itself. These same tests can also help monitor progress in the treatment of musculoskeletal disorders. And again, this is why it's important for the phlebotomist to maintain a quality specimen when doing their job. The nervous system is the control and message center of the body. It controls and coordinates all body functions. The nervous system also senses and interprets information from outside the human body. The neuron or nerve cell is the basic unit of the nervous system. Neurons send messages and sensations from the receptors in different parts of the body through the spinal cord to the brain. The nervous system has two main parts: the central nervous system and the peripheral nervous system. The central nervous system is composed of the brain and the spinal cord, whereas the peripheral nervous system deals with the periphery, or the outer parts of the body, via nerves that extend throughout the body. The brain is housed within the skull. The spinal cord is housed within the spinal column. The spinal column extends from the brain into the trunk of the body. Both the brain and the spinal cord are covered by protective membranes made up of 3 layers. Between 2 of these layers is the cerebral spinal fluid. This fluid circulates around the brain and spinal cord and provides a cushion against injuries. The brain has 3 main sections: the cerebrum, the cerebellum, and the brainstem. The largest section of the human brain is the cerebrum. The outside layer of the cerebrum is called the cerebral cortex. The cerebral cortex is the part of the brain in which thinking, analysis, association of ideas, judgment, emotions, and memory occur. The cerebral cortex also does things such as direct speech and emotions, interprets messages from the eyes, ears, nose, tongue, and skin, and controls voluntary muscle movement. The cerebrum is divided into right and left hemispheres. The right hemisphere controls movement and function on the left side of the body. The left hemisphere controls movement and function on the right side of the body. Any illness or injury to the right hemisphere affects functions on the left side of the body, and vice versa. The cerebellum controls balance and regulates the body's voluntary movements. It produces and coordinates smooth movements. Someone who has a problem with the cerebellum will be uncoordinated and have jerky and spasmodic muscle movements. A very common condition involved in this is called Parkinson's disease. The cerebrum and cerebellum are connected to the spinal cord by the brainstem. The brainstem contains a kind of regulatory center called the medulla oblongata. It controls heart rate, breathing, swallowing, coughing, vomiting, and closing and opening of blood vessels. The spinal cord is connected to the brain. It is protected by the bones of the spinal column, or the vertebrae. Nerve pathways run through the spinal cord. They conduct messages between the brain and the body. Cranial nerves attach to the brain and brainstem. Some of these nerves bring information from the sense organs directly to the brain. Some control muscles, and others connected to the glands and organs, such as the lungs and heart. There are 12 pairs of cranial nerves. Nerves that are attached to the spinal cord and connect the spinal cord to other parts of the body are called spinal nerves. The brain communicates with most of the body through the spinal nerves. There are 31 pairs of spinal nerves. The function of the nervous system are to control and coordinate all body functions, to sense, interpret, and respond to change occurring both inside and outside of the body. So remember the following points about the nervous system. It's the control and message center of the body. It controls and coordinates all body functions, almost like the CPU of a computer. Senses information from the outside of the body and elicits an appropriate response, maybe sometimes inappropriate. Two main parts anatomically are the central nervous system, which contains the brain and the spinal cord, and the peripheral nervous system, which contains all the outside nerves. The eyes, ears, nose, tongue, and skin are the body's major sense organs. They're considered part of the central nervous system because they contain receptors that receive impulses from the environment. They then relay these impulses to the nerves. The eye, which is about an inch in diameter, is located in a bony socket of the skull. The bony socket protects the eye, which is surrounded by muscles that control its movement. The outer part of the eye is called the sclera. The sclera appears white, except in front, where it's called the cornea. The cornea is actually clear, but it appears colored because it lies over the iris of the colored part of the eye. The pupil or black circle in the center of the iris widens or narrows to adjust the amount of light that enters the eye. Inside the back of the eye is the retina. The retina contains cells that respond to light and send a message to the brain, where the picture is interpreted so a person can see. The ear is a sense organ that provides balance and hearing. It is divided into three parts: the outer, middle, and inner ear. The outer ear is a funnel-shaped outer part, sometimes called the auricle or pinna. It guides sound waves into the auditory canal. This canal is about an inch long and it contains many glands that secrete earwax. Earwax and hair in the ear protect the ear from foreign objects, like bugs. The eardrum or tympanic membrane separates the outer ear from the middle ear. The middle ear consists of the eustachian tube and three ossicles, or small little bones that amplify sound. The ossicles transmit sound to the inner ear. The eustachian tube connects the middle ear to the throat. It functions to allow air into the middle ear to equalize pressure on the tympanic membrane. The inner ear contains fluid that carries sound waves from the middle ear to the auditory nerve. The auditory nerve then transmits the impulses to the brain. The inner ear also contains structures that help maintain balance. And some other sense organs that also work with the nervous system include the nose, which brings olfactory messages or a sense of smell to the brain through the olfactory nerve, the tongue, which is involved in taste and also is involved in the manipulation of speech, and the skin itself, which brings outside information such as temperature, vibration, pain to the organ of the brain. To make the connection with our phlebotomy career, some conditions to know about, such as cerebrovascular accident or stroke. It's one of the most common disorders of the nervous system. It occurs when the blood supply of the brain, or at least part of the brain, is interrupted or blocked, or when a blood vessel leaks or ruptures within the brain. There's no blood test that can detect or confirm a stroke, but when a stroke is suspected, blood tests will be ordered to rule out other possible causes of the patient's symptoms. Blood tests must also provide clues to possible causes of the stroke, such as indications of abnormal blood clotting. Nervous system disorders like Parkinson's disease and multiple sclerosis cannot be diagnosed by blood tests. Blood tests are likely to be ordered for patients in whom these illnesses are suspected, usually to rule out other causes. They can help the doctor determine if other problems might be causing the patient's symptoms. Researchers are working to develop blood tests that might or can diagnose these and other nervous system illnesses. Most of this research centers on testing the patient's blood for biological markers associated with certain diseases. Respiration is the process of the body taking in oxygen and removing carbon dioxide. Involved breathing in, which is referred to as inspiration, and breathing out, expiration. The entire mechanical process of inspiration and expiration is referred to as ventilation. The lungs accomplish this process. As the lungs inhale, the air is pulled in through the nose and into the pharynx, which is a tubular passage for food and air. From the pharynx, air passes into the larynx or voice box. The larynx is located at the beginning of the trachea or windpipe. The trachea divides into two branches at its lower portion, the right and left bronchus or bronchi. Each bronchus leads into a lung and then subdivides into bronchioles. These smaller airways subdivide further. They end in what's called alveoli, tiny one-celled sacs that appear in grape-like clusters. Blood is supplied to the alveoli by capillaries. Oxygen and carbon dioxide are exchanged between the alveoli and the capillary. Oxygen-saturated blood then circulates through the capillaries and venules, which are small veins of the lungs, into the pulmonary vein and to the left side of the heart. The carbon dioxide is exhaled through the alveoli into the bronchioles and bronchi of the lungs, through the trachea, through the larynx and the pharynx, and out of the nose and the mouth to be expelled out of the body. Each lung is covered by something called a pleura, or a membrane with two layers. One is attached to the chest wall, the other is attached to the surface of the lung. The space between the layers is filled with a thin fluid that lubricates the layers, preventing them from rubbing together during breathing. Please remember the important points about the respiratory system. Inspiration or inhalation is the breathing in of air, and expiration or exhalation is breathing out by the lungs. The combination of both processes of breathing air in and out is referred to as ventilation. The functions of the respiratory system are to bring oxygen into the body and to eliminate carbon dioxide, which is produced as the body uses oxygen. The urinary system is composed of two kidneys, two ureters, one urinary bladder, a single urethra, and a meatus. The kidneys are located in the upper part of the abdominal cavity on the side of the spine, on the posterior end. These two bean-shaped organs are protected by the muscles of the back and the lower part of the rib cage. When blood flows through the kidneys, waste products and excessive water are filtered out. Necessary water and substances are reabsorbed into the bloodstream. Waste and the remaining fluid form urine. The body must maintain a proper balance between water absorbed in the body and waste fluids that are released from the body. Each kidney has a ureter, which is attached to the bladder. Urine flows through the ureters to the bladder, a muscular sac in the lower part of the abdomen. Urine flows from the bladder through the urethra. It then passes out of the body through the meatus, the opening of the end of the urethra. In the female, the meatus is located in the genital area just in front of the opening of the vagina. In the male, the meatus is located at the end of the penis. It's important to remember that the urinary system has two important functions. Through urine, the urinary system eliminates waste products created by the cells. The urinary system also maintains water balance in the body. Urinary tract infections are some of the most common disorders of the urinary system. They're usually detected through urinalysis, or the examination of a patient's urine. Many phlebotomy technicians are trained to collect and process urine specimens. Urinalysis and blood tests are both used in the diagnosis of kidney disorders. When a doctor is assessing a patient for possible kidney disorder, he or she will test the patient's blood for the presence of certain waste products. The presence of these wastes indicates that the kidneys are not filtering the blood as effectively as they should be. The series of tests ordered to evaluate kidney health is known as a renal panel. The gastrointestinal system, also referred to as the digestive system, is made up of the gastrointestinal tract and accessory digestive organs. The GI tract is a long passageway extending from the mouth to the anus, the opening of the rectum. Food passes from the mouth through the pharynx into the esophagus, the stomach, the small intestine, and the large intestines, then out of the body as solid waste in the form of feces or stool. The teeth, tongue, salivary glands, liver, gallbladder, and pancreas are all the accessory organs to help digestion. They help prepare food so that it can be absorbed. Food is first placed in the mouth. The teeth chew it by cutting it, and then chopping and grinding it into smaller pieces so that it can be swallowed. Saliva moistens the food and begins the chemical digestion. The tongue helps with chewing and swallowing by pushing the food around and between the teeth and then into the pharynx. The pharynx is a muscular structure located at the back of the mouth. It extends into the throat. It contracts with swallowing and pushing food into the esophagus. The muscles of the esophagus then move food into the stomach through the involuntary contractions called peristalsis. The stomach is a muscular pouch located in the upper left part of the abdominal cavity. It provides physical digestion by stirring and churning the food to break it down into smaller particles. The glands in the stomach lining aid in digestion. They secrete gastric juices that chemically break down the food. This process turns food into a semi-liquid substance called chyme. Peristalsis continues in the stomach, pushing the chyme into small intestine. The small intestine is about 20 feet long. Here, enzymes secreted by the liver and the pancreas finish digesting the chyme. Bile, which is a green liquid produced by the liver, is stored in the gallbladder and released into the small intestine. Bile helps break down dietary fat. The liver converts fats and sugars into glucose, which is sugar that can be carried to the cells of the blood. The liver also stores glucose. The pancreas produces insulin, a hormone that works to move glucose, or natural sugar, from the blood and into the cells for energy for the body. The chyme is then moved by peristalsis through the small intestine. There, villi, which are tiny projections lining the small intestine, absorb the digested food into the capillaries. Peristalsis moves the chyme that has not already been digested through the large intestine. In the large intestine, most of the water in the chyme is absorbed. What remains is feces, a semi-solid material of water, solid waste material, bacteria, and mucus. Feces passes by peristalsis through the rectum, the lower end of the colon. It moves out of the body through the anus and rectal opening. So just remember, the gastrointestinal system has the following functions: digestion, absorption, and elimination. Digestion is the process of preparing food physically and chemically so that it can be absorbed into the cells. Absorption is the transfer of nutrients from the intestines to the cells. Elimination is the process of expelling wastes, which is made up of waste products, that are not absorbed into the cells. To make a connection to the phlebotomy profession, common blood tests associated with the gastrointestinal diseases and disorders include tests for antibodies, often present in patients with digestive illnesses such as Crohn's disease or ulcerative colitis. There are also many blood tests related to the health of the liver. These tests are known as hepatic function panels. These check the levels of certain substances and enzymes in the blood. The results can help a doctor determine if a patient's liver is functioning properly. Same can be done with the pancreas. Phlebotomists may also assist in collecting stool samples or in collecting CLIA wave tests, such as checking for stool for the presence of hidden, or what we call occult blood, which can be an indicator of colon or rectal cancer. The endocrine system is made up of glands in different areas of the body. Glands are organs that produce and secrete chemicals called hormones. Hormones are chemical substances created by the body that control numerous body functions. Hormones are carried in the blood to various organs. Some issues involving the endocrine system include diabetes, which is a condition in which the pancreas produces too little of the hormone insulin or does not properly use insulin. Another condition called gestational diabetes is a form of diabetes associated with pregnancy. The pituitary gland, is often called the master gland, is located behind the eyes at the base of the brain. It secretes key hormones that causes other glands to produce other hormones. The following are just some of the hormones secreted by the pituitary gland. There's growth hormone, which regulates growth and development; antidiuretic hormone, or ADH, which controls the balance of fluids in the body; oxytocin, which causes the uterus to contract during and after childbirth. The pituitary gland also produces hormones that regulate the thyroid gland and the adrenal glands. The thyroid gland is located in the neck in front of the larynx. It produces thyroid hormone, which regulates metabolism, the burning of food for heat and energy. The parathyroid glands secrete a hormone that regulates the body's use of calcium. Nerves and muscles require calcium to function smoothly. A deficiency of this hormone can cause severe muscle contractions and spasms and can even be fatal if untreated. The pancreas is a gland located in the upper midsection of the abdomen, which secretes insulin. Insulin, as we mentioned, is a hormone that works to move glucose from the blood into the cells for energy for the body to use. Two adrenal glands are located at the top of the kidneys. They produce hormones that are essential to life. These hormones are important because they help the body regulate carbohydrate metabolism. They also control the body's reaction to stress and regulate salt and water absorption in the kidneys. Adrenal glands also produce the hormone adrenaline, which regulates muscle power, heart rate, blood pressure, and energy levels during stressful situation emergencies. The gonads, or sex glands, produce hormones that regulate the body's ability to reproduce. The testes in the male secrete testosterone. The ovaries in the female secrete estrogen and progesterone. The functions of the endocrine system are to maintain homeostasis throughout hormone secretion, influence growth and development, maintain blood sugar levels, and regulate levels of calcium and phosphate in the body. The endocrine system also regulates the body's ability to reproduce and determines how fast cells burn food for energy. Many blood tests are associated with diseases and disorders of the endocrine system. Diabetes is an illness in which the pancreas does not produce enough insulin, does not produce any insulin. Blood tests to determine how much glucose is present in the blood aid in the diagnosis and management of diabetes. Patients with diagnosed diabetes may test their own blood regularly, and phlebotomists may be trained to perform CLIA-waived tests for blood glucose levels. Phlebotomists may also assist in performing glucose challenge or glucose tolerance tests, in which a patient drinks a very sweet liquid and then has her blood drawn for testing at certain intervals. These tests are commonly performed during pregnancy to check for gestational diabetes, the form of diabetes associated with pregnancy. Blood tests are also commonly used to diagnose and monitor treatment for other endocrine system disorders such as hyperthyroidism and hypothyroidism. These disorders are levels of thyroid hormone which control many body processes, whether they're either too high, hyper, or too low, hypo. The reproductive system is made up of the reproductive organs, which are different in men and women. The reproductive system allows human beings to reproduce or create new human life or offspring. Reproduction begins when a male and female sex cells, the sperm and the ovum, join. These cells are formed in the male and female sex glands. These sex glands are called the gonads. In the male, the sex glands or gonads are the testes or the testicles. Two oval glands are located outside the body in the scrotum. The scrotum is a sac made of skin and muscle, and is suspended between the thighs. The testes produce the male sex cells called sperm and testosterone. Testosterone is a hormone needed for the male reproductive organs to function properly. Testosterone also promotes the development of male secondary sex characteristics such as growth of facial hair and deepening of the voice. In the female, the gonads are two oval glands called the ovaries. There's one ovary on each side of the uterus. The ovaries make the female sex hormones or eggs, sex cells or eggs called ova. They release the hormone estrogen and progesterone. Each month from puberty to menopause, an egg is released from an ovary. This cycle is maintained by estrogen and progesterone. These hormones control development of female secondary sex characteristics such as increased breast size and growth of pubic and underarm hair. For males, the function of the reproductive system is to manufacture sperm and the hormone testosterone. For female, the reproductive system manufactures ova and hormones estrogen and progesterone. It also provides an environment for the development of the fetus and produces milk for the nourishment of the baby after birth. Blood tests are used to confirm pregnancy by measuring the level of HCG, a pregnancy-related hormone in patients' blood. Throughout a woman's pregnancy, blood tests are ordered at various times to screen for potential problems or defects in the fetus. They may also be used in various ways during the course of infertility treatment. The immune system protects the body from disease-causing bacteria, viruses, and microorganisms in two ways. Nonspecific immunity protects the body from disease in general, whereas specific immunity protects against a particular disease that is invading the body at a given time. The immune system is composed of a clear yellowish fluid that carries disease-fighting cells called lymphocytes, and this fluid is called lymph. So to protect itself against disease in general, the body has several defenses involved in nonspecific immunity. Anatomic barriers include the skin and the mucous membranes. They provide a physical barrier to keep materials like bacteria, viruses, and other microorganisms from invading the body. Saliva, tears, and mucus secretions also help protect the body by washing away substances. Physiologic barriers include body temperature and acidity of certain organs. Most organisms that cause disease cannot survive high temperatures or high acidity. When the body senses foreign organisms, it can raise its temperature, like running a fever, to kill off the invaders. The acidity to organs like the stomach keeps harmful bacteria from growing there. Inflammatory responses refers to the body's ability to fight infection through inflammation or swelling of an infected area. When inflammation occurs, it indicates that the body has sent extra disease-fighting cells and extra blood to the infected area to fight the infection. To protect itself against specific diseases, the body will engage specific immunity. The body makes different types of cells that will fight a range of different invaders. Once it successfully eliminated an invader, the immune system records the invasion in a form of antibodies. Antibodies are carried within the cells. They prevent a disease from threatening the body a second time. Acquired immunity is a kind of specific immunity. The body acquires it either by fighting an infection or by vaccination. For example, a person can acquire immunity to a certain disease like measles in two ways. One, the person can get measles, then their body forms antibodies to the disease to make sure they will not get it again, or at least become susceptible to it again. Or, two, the person can get a vaccine for the measles. This causes his or her body to produce the same antibodies to protect them from the disease. When the body isn't fighting infections, swelling may occur in the lymph nodes. These are oval-shaped bodies that can be small as a pinhead or as large as an almond. They're located in the neck, groin, armpits. The lymph nodes filter out germs and waste products carried from the tissues by the lymph fluid. After lymph fluid has been filtered in the lymph nodes, it flows back into the bloodstream. Unlike the circulatory system, in which the heart functions as a pump to move the blood, the lymph system has no pump. Lymph fluid is circulated by muscle activity, massage, and breathing. A sore muscle may feel better if it is rubbed. The rubbing action helps the lymph fluid circulate, carrying waste products away from the tired muscle. Remember, the functions of the immune system and lymphatic system are to protect the body against disease-causing bacteria, viruses, and microorganisms, and to remove excess fluids and waste products from the body's tissue. Immune system disorders might be caused by overactive or underactive immune responses. In some disorders, a person's immune system attacks and damages the person's own cells or tissues. These are called autoimmune disorders, and different autoimmune disorders may affect the body differently. Rheumatoid arthritis, scleroderma, lupus are all syndromes that are examples of autoimmune disorders. In other disorders, the immune system either does not respond or does not respond enough to true threats from pathogens. This is called an immune deficiency. Blood tests can be used to analyze the presence or absence of particular antibodies. They can also determine the speed and the efficiency of which the immune system's response occurs. So folks, that's chapter 6 on the overview of the human body. Please review the various organ systems. As mentioned before, the heart, cardiovascular, circulatory system will be covered in depth and in detail in chapter 7. Until next time, take care.